They have conquered death. They cannot age, they cannot decay, they cannot die. In the grim darkness of the far future, where every single species is locked in a desperate, bloody struggle simply to survive another day, the Necrons have already won the ultimate victory. They achieved what every biological organism, from the lowest insect to the highest human emperor, has fundamentally dreamed of since the dawn of consciousness. They escaped mortality. For 60 million years, they have slept in the cold, dark, absolute masters of the physical universe, encased in bodies of indestructible living metal. They are gods of the material realm, immune to disease, immune to weakness, and immune to the ravages of time itself. And yet, they are arguably the most tragic civilization in the entire galaxy. What appears to be the ultimate triumph over nature is, in reality, a cosmic horror story of unimaginable proportions. Because what the Necrons did not understand when they made their wager for eternity is that death is not the enemy of life. It is the boundary that gives life its meaning. Today on Hackrift, we are descending into the silent, glowing tombs of the Necron dynasties. We will explore the philosophy of immortality, the terrifying weight of endless existence, and why the most polite, aristocratic murder machines in the galaxy are desperately performing a play for an audience that no longer exists. To understand the tragedy of the Necrons, you must first understand the absolute misery of their origins. Long before they were immortal machines, they were the Necrontyr. They were a flesh and blood species born on a world orbiting a violent radioactive star. Their sun was a cruel god that bombarded their planet with unrelenting radiation. For the Necrontyr, life was not a gift. It was a fleeting, agonizing sprint toward the grave. Their bodies were riddled with cancers and tumors from the moment they were born. Their entire culture, their architecture, and their philosophy became fundamentally obsessed with death, because death was the only constant in their incredibly short lives. Imagine an entire civilization where building a tomb is more important than building a home. They looked up at the stars, saw the ancient immortal beings known as the Old Ones, and they felt a profound, burning cosmic envy. Why should the Old Ones live forever in peace, while the Necrontyr suffered and rotted in the dark? This bitter, venomous desperation is the psychological foundation of their doom. When you are drowning in suffering, you will grasp at any hand that reaches down into the dark. And the hand that reached down to the Necrontyr belonged to the Citan, the star gods. The Citan offered them the ultimate cure for their biological curse: Biotransference. They promised the Necrontyr bodies of perfect, immortal metal. They promised them an eternity free from pain. But the star gods did not mention the price. The Biotransference was not a medical procedure. It was a metaphysical slaughterhouse. The entire Necrontyr species marched into massive, continent-sized biofurnaces. Their weak, irradiated flesh was stripped away, incinerated in cold, green fire. Their consciousness, their memories, and their very minds were violently downloaded into cold, lifeless robotic shells. But a biological mind is not merely data. It is inextricably linked to the soul, and the soul cannot be digitized. As the Necrontyr were converted into machines, their souls were devoured by the laughing star gods. When the furnaces finally went quiet, the Necrontyr were gone. In their place stood the Necrons. They felt no pain, they felt no sickness, but they also felt nothing else. The lower classes, the billions of ordinary citizens, were stripped of their cognitive functions entirely, reduced to mindless, silent automatons. But the ruling class, the overlords and the cryptex, retained their consciousness. They woke up in their new, perfect bodies and realized the horrifying magnitude of their mistake. They had not defeated death. They had merely sterilized it. They lost their empathy, their joy, their ability to dream, and their connection to the warp. They had traded a short life of painful becoming for an eternity of static, hollow being. This brings us to the most absurd, yet deeply tragic aspect of the Necron dynasties. If you observe a Necron overlord in the 41st millennium, you will not see a cold, calculating machine intelligence. You will see an aristocrat. You will see a being adorned in metallic capes and ornate crowns. They still use their royal titles. They still enforce their hierarchies. They observe ancient, incredibly complex rules of etiquette known as the triarchal codes. Amidst the burning ruins of a galaxy consumed by total war, two Necron overlords will literally halt a planetary bombardment to formally debate the proper linguistic title of their opponent, or to argue over a perceived slight to their honor from 60 million years ago. Logically, this makes absolutely no sense. Why would an immortal, unfeeling machine care about politeness? Why would a robot care about a royal title? Because it is not programming. It is a desperate psychological coping mechanism. The etiquette, the titles, and the performative arrogance are the only things preventing the overlords from facing the terrifying void inside their own metal skulls. If a Necron overlord admits that his title is meaningless, if he stops demanding respect, he is forced to confront the truth, that he is no longer a living being. He is merely a ghost haunting a metallic corpse. Their extreme politeness and obsession with protocol is a simulacrum of life. It is the architectural structure of a shattered ego trying to convince itself that it still matters. There is no greater manifestation of this philosophical tragedy than Trazyn the Infinite. Trazyn is an overlord who has dedicated his endless existence to collecting the galaxy. He hoards artifacts, historical documents, and even living beings, freezing them in stasis fields within his monolithic museum on the tomb world of Solomys. On the surface, Trazyn appears to be a macabre, eccentric hoarder, a dark comedy character who will steal an entire Space Marine regiment just to complete a diorama. He will politely hand a terrified human planetary governor a holographic receipt as he steals the planet's most sacred relic. But look deeper into the abyss of Trazyn's mind. Why does he collect? He collects history because the Necrons have no history left to make. They cannot reproduce. They cannot evolve. Their culture has been completely frozen for 60 million years. Trazyn obsessively catalogues the cultures, the triumphs and the tragedies of other, lesser races because he is trying to fill a metaphysical hole in his own chest. He is a being denied the ability to experience the passage of time, so he attempts to own time itself by putting it in a glass box. His politeness, his letters of apology for stealing a world's heritage, are the tragic actions of a god who is secretly jealous of the mortals he tortures. And what happens when the illusion of etiquette finally breaks? What happens when the weight of eternity finally crushes the fragile, artificial sanity of a Necron mind? The galaxy witnesses the true horror of their condition. They do not die, they descend into madness. Some become the destroyer cults, Necrons, who have realized the utter futility of existence. They strip away their humanoid forms, replacing their legs with anti-grav platforms and their hands with heavy weaponry. They abandon all protocol, driven by a singular, nihilistic obsession to eradicate all biological life in the universe. If they cannot live, they will ensure nothing else does. Life itself is an insult to them. Others fall to the Flayed virus. These Necrons are cursed with a sudden, agonizing phantom hunger for flesh they can no longer consume, and a desperate desire for a body they no longer possess. The Flayed ones hunt biological creatures, skin them alive, and drape the bloody, rotting flesh over their metallic endoskeletons. It is the most horrifying display of grief in the Warhammer universe. They are immortal machines desperately trying to wear the clothing of mortality, hoping that the blood of their victims will somehow warm the cold, dead iron of their own bodies. The destroyers and the Flayed ones are the inevitable destination for all Necrons. The polite, aristocratic overlords look at them and feel the icy grip of terror, knowing that one day their royal titles will not be enough to hold back the madness. Ultimately, the story of the Necrons is a profound philosophical thesis on the nature of existence. We fear death, but death is the very mechanism that forces us to move forward. The knowledge that our time is limited is the engine of our ambition, our love, and our capacity to change. When the Necrons removed the threat of death, they removed the engine of their own souls. They traded the dynamic, chaotic beauty of becoming for the cold, static horror of simply being. A Necron overlord may conquer 1,000 worlds, but he is not truly ruling anything. He is performing. He is an actor on an empty stage, repeating ancient rituals in a universe that has long since moved on. They speak of empire without a future. They speak of honor without the capacity to feel it. They did not conquer death. They merely locked themselves inside it. When we look at the silent, gleaming legions of the Necrontyr, they force us to confront a terrifying reality about our own desires. We look for ways to extend our lives, to leave a legacy that will last forever. But the Necrons show us the ultimate warning of that pursuit. They are terrifying, not because they are powerful, but because they show us something we refuse to accept. That eternity is not a blessing. It is a prison for those who have nothing left to become. If you are ready to keep exploring the deep, intellectual abyss of science fiction and philosophy, do not face the dark alone. Subscribe to Hackrift. Leave your thoughts in the archives below and tell us, if the price of absolute immortality was the loss of your ability to change, would you take the deal? Until the next transmission, keep questioning the dark.